Let's get into it.
Absolutely. I mean, we have data in the United States. I mean, we have this thing called the presidential fitness test, right? That was started, I think maybe it was Kennedy started. Some president a long time ago started it. So we have decades worth of data, and kids today are less fit. Absolutely. Ask any Army recruiter, they'll tell you that fewer and fewer Army recruits are physically fit and able to be.
What about strong in terms of bones and our skeletal structures?
Yeah, I mean, the rates of osteoporosis are going up, and one of the reasons for that is that loading our skeleton when we're growing up causes the skeleton to accrue mass, to grow bone. If you don't exercise, right, and especially weight-bearing forms of exercise, you don't grow as much skeleton. And then when you hit, normally people stop adding bone around 25 to 30, right? So I don't know how old you are, but
31.
All right, so that's it. You have no more bone to add, and for the rest of your life, you're going to start losing bone, right?
Sugar.
But fortunately, you look like a reasonably fit person who was very physically active, so you probably built up enough bone. So having a high level of bone when you're 25 to 30, as you lose bone, that's going to protect you from falling below that threshold that's going to give you osteoporosis. But if you aren't physically active when you're young, you have less bone to start with, you're still losing, so you lose bone, and you're going to be much more likely to fall below that threshold. You're much more likely to get osteoporosis, and rates of osteoporosis are rising. Again, it's another one of these mismatched diseases that's rising radically throughout the world.
As well as prediabetes. I haven't seen this full podcast, but I'm going to assume that they talked about it. The rate of childhood pre-diabetics and type 2 diabetes and fatty liver acid syndrome children in the Western world today is astounding. It's astounding. We have no idea just how important an active life is beyond, it makes you feel better. Oh, it keeps the weight off. No, there are biological mechanisms within the body that are working underneath all of this meat vehicle that have profound effects on your well-being. We're just barely getting an understanding of some of these. And to think that Western medicine and the general knowledge we have today medicinally regarding human health and human biology and what it means to be healthy and the markers that we currently use to denote somebody being healthy or not is just preposterous, man. We're barely scratching the surface on what some of the consequences are from just sitting down, from not exercising every day, beyond the eye test of looking at somebody and saying, hey, you're breathing a little hard. It's looking like you're struggling there. You might want to lose some weight. Hey, your skin is looking a little bad. Your hair, the bags under your eyes, could tell you're tired and low energy. No, there are things going on underneath the surface that we're just barely beginning to understand and may have consequences far more drastic than what we're used to by simply hey, having a pizza here, not that bad for you. Yeah, if you do it over time, you'll get, plaque in your arteries. You may need a stent. Hey, if you smoke all the time, you're going to get throat cancer, But what are the effects of some of the other things that we may not be taking into account? Like, hey, if your children don't exercise when they're small, they may have weak bones when they grow up. Hey, if your children chew very soft things and you don't allow them while they're teething or younger in general as toddlers to chew harder food, they don't develop jaw muscles. They get that weak chin look. They become mouth breathers. Hey, we're barely now learning just how detrimental something as simple as breathing out of your mouth has multiple cascading effects on your entire health. That now people are taping their mouth shut when they sleep, plugging their noses, or wearing CPAP machines or those little bridge tapes that open their nostrils up so that make sure that they don't breathe out of their mouth when they're asleep. How many of us suffer from sleep apnea? It's incredible just how much we've declined as a species when we're talking about the overall bill of health of a human being. And I'm assuming they're going to get into some of this stuff. And we haven't even touched on diet, sleep, waking and getting sunlight at sunrise, activating you, prepping you for sleep, sunsets, looking at the golden hour, stuff like. We are far more complex than we give ourselves credit for. It's not a simple X input equals Y output. There are multiple things here going on at the same time that require precision and have evolved over a long time in order to equal out to a healthy outcome for an adult. It's truly astounding, man. Every year, every day we learn, here's a new study, here's something, here's what you should be doing, here's the effects of this, and it's hard to even keep up with it. The only thing we know for certain is that modern life has very negative consequences to our overall health and well-being.
exercise also helps prevent bone loss because it suppresses the cells that essentially cause our bones to start being resorbed. So it's kind of a double whammy. Not enough exercise when you're young, you have less peak bone mass. Not enough exercise when you stay old, your bones are going to lose mass at a more rapid rate.
I was reading in your book that teen tennis players can become 40% thicker and stronger when they become older because they were using
in the arm that they use. Yeah. So
really?
So when you play tennis, right, the arm that you use, which is whacking the ball, that's getting more loading than the arm that you simply use to throw the ball in the air. So there's an asymmetry. So the humerus, the upper arm bone of tennis players, can be like 40% thicker in the arm that they use to whack a tennis racket. Just the bone, yeah. It's a beautiful experiment, natural experiment in our body to show the importance of loading. That loading causes your skeleton to respond, because our skeletons are like other tissues in our bodies respond to demand, right? We match capacity to demand. If you don't demand something of a tissue, it's not going to grow the capacity because otherwise it's going to be wasting energy, right?
I know that about muscles. I knew that muscles grow and expand, but I didn't think I had any say in the development of my bones.
Absolutely. Yeah. Loading your bones is one of the factors that we talked about it earlier. That's why people who eat harder food, that's less processed, grow larger jaws, right? Our jaws have shrunk by about 6%, we showed, by about 6% since we started processing all our food, because we're just loading our jaws less, right? That's another example.
What we eat and how we eat, I think it was James Nestor that said, the way we chew impacts what our face looks like when we become adults. So if a baby's chewing lots of soft foods, when they grow up, they're going to have like a small jaw.
Yeah, that's research I did, actually.
Oh, yes. Really? I think he cited you.
Yeah. So how your chewing affects the shape of how your jaw grows. And so it is true that we have smaller jaws today than we used to.
Is there a consequence to this?
Well, so one consequence is increased rates of malocclusion, right? There's just not enough room for our teeth to fit into our jaws. So now we have to go to the orthodontist to get our wisdom teeth removed because there's not enough space for them.
Okay, so if I just get my kid chewing hard food from the jump, then his wisdom teeth will be fine.
It might be the case, yeah. So the experiment I'd like to see somebody do, of course it's unethical, right? It would be to randomize two groups of kids, have one group of kids basically chew really hard resinous gum for like all their childhood, right? Because you're not going to get them to eat like, unprocessed hunter-gatherer food, right? But basically have them chew gum all the time. And then compare them to, say, their twins who don't chew that much gum. And let's see who, see how much of an effect it has on their jaw growth.
Puberty, the age in which women go through puberty has changed quite significantly.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out why.
It's energy again, right? It's about energy. Remember, life is about energy, taking in energy and using that to reproduce. So how much energy you have when you're growing up affects the rate at which you grow and the rate and your ability to switch from growth to reproduction. So we have data, for example, from France. There's good data from hundreds of years in France. I'm not sure why the French have such good longitudinal data. Maybe it's because of the Napoleonic army or whatever. But we can show that 200 years ago, French girls were tending to go through puberty. They would start their menstrual, they went through what we call menarche when they start menstruating around the age of 16. Today it's around 12 and a half, right? And that's because of more energy. We see that in the area of Kenya where we do field work, right? We're looking at the same population, Kalenjin-speaking people, and in the rural areas where, they have hard lives, right? They're working all day long. There's no machines. There's no electricity. There's not a huge amount of food. Girls, we go through menarche about 2 years later than in the urban area, just 50 kilometers away, where there's more food, there's more energy, there's more Coca-Cola, there's more whatever. And we call that the secular trend, right? So that girls are maturing earlier, they can reproduce earlier, because again, what does natural selection want you to do? It wants you to take in energy and use it to reproduce. That's what we're adapted for. So if you have more energy, we're evolved to do it earlier.
And I wanted to touch up on this article too, because it speaks to not only the physical elements, but the mental. Broadening infantilization of society as a whole, where we treat our adults in their later stages in life still as if they're children. I mean, it's gotten absolutely ridiculous. We've absolved them of all responsibility as adults, and in turn, this is what we get. This is us bearing the fruits of our labor with, are they bringing juice boxes too? The headline reads, Gen Z bringing parents with them to job interviews. It says, we get a lot of cringe from Gen Z, like when they complain that they're not making six figures right out of school. True, for instance. We're not sure about the rest of you, but this writer, for one, barely had more than $5 in disposable income each week until we hit our 30s. But the latest report to make us weep for the future comes from the New York Post, which tells us that nearly 1 in 5, I kid you not, if someone can verify these numbers, 1 in 5 Gen Z college applicants are bringing their parents to job interviews with them. What? It says in a survey of more than 800 hiring managers, Intelligent Magazine reported that 19% of Gen Z applicants are, yes, bringing mommy or daddy to join them for their interview. Holy hell, this is way beyond helicopter parenting. This is lawnmower parenting. But it gets even worse for Gen Z. According to the Post, the survey also reported the following gruesome numbers. So this is shocking. 1 in 5 employers say that the college graduates are unprepared for interviews and are often unprofessional. 53% of employers surveyed said that recent college graduates struggle with eye contact. 50% said they ask for unreasonable compensation. This sounds like social media delusion. 47% said they don't dress appropriately for interviews. 21% said they refuse to turn their cameras on for virtual interviews. Ay, ay, ay. These are supposed to be the bright future minds of America leading us into a new utopia. Additionally, 63% of those involved in hiring claim that recent college grads can't manage their workload. 61% said they are frequently late to work. 59% claim they often miss deadlines. And 53% know that they are frequently late to meetings. 58% said Gen Z job seekers get offended too easily and are unprepared for the workforce in general. 63% said they're entitled. 57% believe they lack professionalism. 55% said they don't respond well to constructive feedback. And 52% claim they have poor communication skills. Of those surveyed, almost half admitted they fired a recent college graduate. Now, as funny as this article may seem to a bunch of you listening right now, it's also painting a grim picture of our future. Our future leaders of America are grossly unprepared for the world that awaits them. Let's put aside the ideological subversion in college campuses for the moment, as we know that has a big impact on their behavior in their adult life. But let's take a step back and peel the onion layer to health, to physical well-being, to building a strong mental foundation. All of that used to be around church and family. Church used to be the social aspect that would have dampened some of these numbers, dramatically speaking, as it would be socializing your child in the broader community and giving them a goal greater than themselves to strive for the community at large, the country at large, and for humanity at large. Okay, that's the religious side. But let's talk about the physical side here. How many of these kids were brought up in households where their breakfast was cornflakes and highly processed milk, toaster strudels, or Hot Pockets? Neglect from both their parents needing to work, never home, not knowing how to cook meals. Horrendous parenting in general by shoving a tablet in front of their face, completely short-circuiting their dopamine and their ability to have a decent attention span. I think our society is set up in such a way that our young people and future generations fail from the crib before they get to the grave. This is an issue at the cradle, maybe even beyond the cradle, maybe even when a woman is pregnant. There's so many external factors like pollution, like processed food, stressors of having to work while pregnant, or money problems, or a dysfunctional household where the man is not present, no grandparents present to provide support from the family at large. I mean, all these factors can affect greatly the baby in a woman's stomach. So we're starting off disadvantaged here in the West from birth, from before birth. And then you may be put on powdered milk, mass-produced by companies that don't care about quality control. They do just enough to not fail and kill their customers, but keep them coming back. So they make the product addictive in some manner, or cost-cutting by using cheaper and cheaper ingredients to maximize profits and margins. So they don't have your best interest at heart. And then you as a parent, as your child grows, shoves them in front of tablets, in front of phones, in front of TV screens to help take the load off parenting and distracting your children, directly plugging them into programming, propaganda, and destroying neural pathways that otherwise would have been built had they been outside feeling the sun on their skin, the wind in their hair, the dirt between their toes. All the senses that were naturally built to feel out there in nature is completely removed from a large portion of their upbringing. So you have individuals that go into adolescence stunted, with brains practically turned to mush, and we're expecting them to enter adulthood on the same level of their predecessors, and we're seeing that they're failing. I mean, here is a startling trend for you guys. IQ scores in the US have dropped for the first time in nearly 100 years. Studies suggest, so is tech making us dim? It's pointing to technology here, but again, it's everything we've underscored in the prior conversation. They said that the biggest decrease was in people aged 18 to 22. It says skills like verbal reasoning, visual problem solving, and numerical series tests have all gone down. And this is stuff that you may think is common sense, but it requires research and proof. For example, in Illinois, they found that 2-year-olds who capped screen time at 60 minutes and engaged in traditional play for at least 15 minutes a day had better executive function than toddlers spent more time on electronics. They had higher scores than their peers for memory, attention span, decision making, and multitasking ability. It says it is thought that playing outside or with traditional toys flood the brain with blood, increasing blood vessels and strengthening the neuron connections, allowing children to more easily gain cognitive development. And if you're an adult reading this or hearing about this, don't you think that it has a similar effect on your ability to keep your neural function, your cognitive decline being delayed into older age as you stay more active, or you should be getting more active? Have you been feeling like you're getting more brain fog? Are you being more easily distracted than you remember? Are you forgetting words in sentences here and there? Are you finding it harder to focus on tasks for long periods of time? I mean, are you experiencing a cognitive decline, markedly so, in the past 5 years or so as social media has become ingrained in our lives? You may be feeling the effects directly right now. And the answer for a lot of people is yes, I do feel more distracted. I do feel more cluttered. My thoughts are harder to piece together. It's harder to verbalize what I'm thinking and communicate accurately. Almost all aspects of modern living seem to be extremely negative on your mental and physical health. And this is why I don't know if it's natural or how I've come to this conclusion, but I personally want to move away from the cities. I want to move away from using screens. I want to go out on walks more. I want to be out in nature more, away from a high density of human beings. Having humans around you, it's fine. I'm not hating people. I would like my neighbor to be a little further away than glued to me wall to wall. I would like to own some land. I'd like to be out somewhere where the sky is blue and there's not a lot of fog and a lot of noise from traffic and from cars and from people swearing at each other and the hustle and bustle of a city. I like to be somewhere on a mountain, near a mountain, in a valley, rolling hills, small town folk, more humble, more relaxed, more connected to earth. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but have you guys traveled from that, have lived in big cities or visited big cities, gone to small towns or live in small towns and have noticed the marked difference in how people greet one another, converse with one another, and welcome one another? Have you guys noticed it as well? It seems like people in the city are angry all the time, stressed all the time, moody all the time, irritated all the time, as if living in the city is somehow draining them of their happiness. Yet when you go to a small town, and I mean like really a small town, nestled in some corner of a state somewhere or country, wherever you live, that the people are always smiling, always happy, so welcoming. The conversations you have are so much deeper beyond the, oh yeah, busy day today. It's really hot. Wow, it's cold today. The dead conversations they typically have in passing in a city because people are so busy. They need to constantly move on to the next thing. They're so distracted, barely holding on to what they have because it's so expensive. You're working to die essentially, paycheck to paycheck. Are people in the city not feeling this stress? I'm here because my job pays me a lot, but my cost of living is also high. So the money I save, if any at all, barely lasts in my account. I am a quasi-slave in a modern world. This is the digital serfdom that I'm living under. I work just to live so that I can one day die when they promise me my retirement at 65. Oh wait, it's 67 now. Oh wait, it changed to 70. By the time we reach retirement, there won't be a retirement for us. The system has collapsed. Sorry, guys, we don't have the money. Guess you should have saved up on your own. These seeds are constantly sown in people's minds as they're playing that game of keeping up with the Joneses, of buying into what modernity tells them to be happy. Material possessions, hedonism on levels unseen before, alcohol consumption over the weekends that nearly kills people. Constant hookup culture, allowing people in your body, left and right, telling yourself lies that that's empowering, that that's somehow making you happier, that you're more complete as you give the world more and more pieces of you, and you become an empty shell, an empty vessel, until you've given everything and there's no more left to give. And society just chews you up and spits you out, valueless, worthless. Yet when you go to a small town where people are more grounded, happier, more family-oriented, living off the land potentially, where life is slower, convenience is not something that's at your fingertips. You do have to go out and get something, whether it's food. There's no Uber delivering to you at your beck and call. Yeah, they are more happy. They do seem to have things figured out. And they're overall far more healthy than the city folk, if you've noticed. It gives you vibes of the mouse utopia experiment where we're witnessing behavioral sinks in real time. I mean, just to speak about ideological subversion on a societal scale, the fact that we can't have public conversations, or the fact that it even is public conversation today to debate genders and how many there are, should tell you enough about the mental health of society as a whole, but the individuals who are engaging in that conversation. We've lost touch with everything. And I don't think it's a surprise now that there's an undercurrent building up, a sort of counterculture that's spawning with things like Red Pill, that's spawning with things like Passport Bros, where these lifestyles or movements or sets of principles and ideas are constantly going against the grain, kind of pulling back the veil on all the negativity on like, here is the truth about modernity. Here's the truth about society. Here's the truth about the dynamics of the world that we're living in. Here's why you feel like you don't belong. Here's why things seem messed up. Here's why the puzzle pieces don't seem to be fitting together. I seem to be doing things society tells me to do, but my outcome in life is getting worse and worse. I am being demonized for simply being a man, but I've done nothing wrong to anybody. I'm being told that I need to live in this fashion or this direction in life, or else I'll become nobody and nothing. Yet when I listen, my outcome gets worse. Yet when I seek out a partner, I can't find one. It seems everybody's broken. It seems everybody has problems socially. It seems nobody can be intimate anymore on a deeper level. It seems everybody despises one another. We all look at each other as enemies. What's happening? You're not the only one that feels this way. And so these countercultures will keep sprouting up. And it's no surprise that you're starting to get pushback from the younger generations. For example, Gen Z could be the most conservative generation ever. They go out less, have less sex, lose their virginity later. What is up with young people and teenagers? These people are saturated with everything that we've mentioned before. And they feel on a fundamental level internally that there's a disconnect, that this doesn't feel right. These are the people that have grown up. They don't know what life is prior to all this technological advancement, yet still their body, still internally, they know something's wrong. This doesn't feel right. They're sick of being bombarded with hypersexualization, with sex everywhere, with ads everywhere, being told to value themselves based on their attraction, based on the amount of times they can get laid, to be promiscuous, to be godless, to be hedonist to the extreme, to indulge in all the worst aspects of human nature. And yet they still are the ones that are now starting to shy away from it the most. They're seeing the damage live as they're growing up in the filth, as society crumbles around them. We have more homelessness now than we've ever had. We have more crime now than we've ever had. There are more people on the streets, drug addicted, turning into zombies from fentanyl and all these other drug epidemics exploding nationwide. They have to go through school, at bus stops, weaving through all of this. They see it with their eyes. This isn't what is portrayed in Hollywood and movies that they watch from beyond their times, from before they existed. The golden era, what life used to look like when things like the Santa Monica Pier were nice and clean, where you could walk holding your family's hand, your daughter, your son, your wife, and seeing the street performers and clean beaches. That's all gone when New York was hustling and bustling and not dirty and not full of crime and homeless in porous borders filled with illegals being housed and God knows what off your dime, off your paycheck. The world that they're growing up is completely different than the world that they've seen on TV. They feel this disconnect. And you may be looking at all this in totality as a man, thinking of starting a family, finding a wife of your own, creating a legacy, and thinking, what do I do? Is that even possible in the world we're living in today? My answer is yes. What should you do? I'm not going to harp on this self-improvement stuff because you already know the hard work you need to do on yourself to build yourself up as a man, to become valuable in the eyes of women, to get your pick of the litter, to have a good mate. We already know all that work that we have to do there. Make sure you're eating clean. Make sure you're getting your sleep. Make sure you're working on your body. Make sure you're working on your mind as well. Don't partake in drugs, alcohol, any other hedonistic activities that may be holding you back or that you may be using to cope with your current situation that you may find uninspiring. Join the Spartan Challenge if you haven't. 6-month promise to yourself. It could change your life. And apart from that, you need to develop a plan, concrete, written down, vivid imagination of where you want to be in life 5 years from now, 10 years from now. If a family is what you're really looking for, which a lot of us are, it just may seem hopeless. You need to start looking overseas. That is the reality of the situation in the world we're living in today. You need to begin to invest in yourself, learn skills with the power of the internet and all the knowledge it has to offer, something that gives you the possibility to be working remote, something you can become a consultant at, something you may be able to sell online, a skill you could use to leverage something that you could create with your own 2 hands that you could put on a marketplace to sell. Things of this nature are what's going to give you true financial freedom. Because the old way that was promised to us no longer works in the world that we're currently in. You don't just go to college, get a job after graduation, work with a company for 40, 50 years, retire, and that's life. You will most likely graduate under extreme debt. You cannot discharge it. The job you're going to school for probably does not exist. And the company you're going to get hired at will not keep you for long. They will get rid of you. At the moment, it makes sense to their bottom line. And they won't give you a raise. There are stats out there and studies and all sorts of anecdotal evidences that say that you should be moving from company to company every 2 or so years, and that will double, triple your income over the same span of staying with said one company. You do not get rewarded for loyalty anymore. We're living in a different world, and we have to adapt to it. The only course I see for men to save themselves today is by investing in themselves in a manner either digitally that allows them to work remote or learning a specialized trade or some sort of talent that commands a high salary. Because if you don't want to leave your country, respectable, and we understand you may have long family roots there, other reasons that you do not want to leave, the hassle of moving or learning a language or another culture, totally understandable. But if you teach yourself an in-demand talent that will not be replaced by AI anytime soon, and leverage that into starting your own business, eventually hiring people to do the work that you used to do, and eventually attaining financial freedom, that's the only alternative I see. Colleges beyond specialization like doctors and engineering and dentistry and whatever else I don't see as being worth it, and even those are rapidly degrading because of the poisoning of academia. Now, if you have no idea where to start or are looking for a group of like-minded individuals or just want to be a part of something that may give you a direction, or you may have some skills and talents that you want to share, then I would implore you to join our private community. The link's at the bottom here, right below my mic in hand. We do hold meetings every week, sometimes more. And there are a lot of young guys that are making a ton of progress, young and old alike, from all age ranges and all talents and all abilities and skills learned. And we are trading with each other on that information. And it's extremely beneficial and healthy for a man to be part of a community like this, any community if you can find one, whether that's locally at your MMA gym or that's one online like this. I meet with the guys weekly. You will be talking with me. And our goal is to provide an outlet and a repository for men to gain some knowledge, some skills, some insights into life to help them advance further than maybe their current situation would allow them to and the people they're surrounded by. So if that's you and you want to be a part of something, or you have something to give and help teach, please, I implore you to join. And for those of you that have a path illuminated in front of them and know what you want to do in life, I just want you to remember why you got started on this journey. Think about your loved ones, the people you care about the most, the ones that depend on you the most, And if that's not your main motivation, or you don't have that drive because a tumultuous upbringing, I want you to think about the kind of man you want to be to your future sons, to your future daughters, to your future wife. Use that as a motivation if you don't have it yet. If your son could be watching you today, day by day, how you're progressing in life, or stalling, or coping, whatever it is that you're doing, what would they think of you? I personally no longer use rage and anger and moments in my life where I've been taken advantage of, humiliated, disrespected. I've come to peace with those negative aspects, those demons that used to power me through, difficult moments where I'd want to quit. And now I had to learn a new source of energy, something that I could draw upon to keep me going in those times when I don't want to the most, when nobody's looking, where it doesn't matter what you're doing, you have no praise. In those moments, I now use a different kind of motivation that's, for me at my point in life, fulfilling. Some of you may still be drawn to those negative experiences in your life, which are very good, very powerful, that give you infinite energy and help you overcome situations you would have otherwise given up simply through the pain that you felt. Keep harnessing that, but understand that at one point in your life, you will process those experiences. You will move on from the pain, and it won't be a demon that you can call on to help propel you forward through those tough times. When you reach that, think of something greater than yourself, whether it be religion, whether it be your family, whether it be the legacy as a whole, who you want to be remembered as in this world and the next. Think of it in that term, and that will be all the power you need to move forward. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Shout outs to everybody that buys shirts. Appreciate you yet again. It is a tremendous help. You already know. Empowering men has a cost. It's not a popular thing to do in the mainstream today because apparently it means putting down the other gender. So thank you so much for everybody that's been supporting me with shirts. Everybody from the private communities, everybody that donates, any and all support is welcome. I do appreciate you guys. Thank you. As usual, let me know some of your thoughts in the comments below. Other topics you may want me to cover. I do want to expand and do some different things. We already do on the second channel, but it's nice to go more broad on topics here and every once in a while. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Later, everybody.